My name is Lila, and before that night, I believed I had already seen the worst life could offer. I was wrong. I was a single mother living on the edge of survival. Every day was a quiet battle between unpaid bills and empty cupboards, between dignity and desperation. My son, Aman, was my entire world. His small hands, his innocent smile, the way he trusted me completely, those were the only reasons I woke up every morning and kept going. But love alone does not pay rent. The eviction notice came like a final warning. I still remember holding it in my trembling hands while Aman slept beside me, unaware that his world was about to collapse. That night, he went to bed hungry again. I sat in the dark, listening to his breathing, and realized I had reached a place no mother ever wants to face. I had no options left. That was when I heard about the auction, an underground event attended by powerful men, billionaires, royals, businessmen, where women were chosen in exchange for money. Some called it companionship. Others called it opportunity. I called it humiliation. But desperation has a cruel way of silencing pride that I told myself it would only be temporary. I told myself I was doing it for Aman. The night of the auction, I kissed my son's forehead longer than usual. I left him with my elderly neighbor, forcing a smile as if everything was normal. He waved at me, trusting me completely. That trust nearly broke me. The hall was nothing like the life I came from. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, men in tailored suits speaking softly, confidently, like the world already belonged to them. Women sat in a corner, dressed elegantly, silent, waiting. We were not guests. We were displays. A man with a rehearsed smile approached me. "Remember," he said quietly, "smile. Don't speak unless asked, and never look directly at the bidders." My heart pounded so hard I thought it would give me away. Then my name was called. Lot number 23, Lila. My legs felt weak as I walked onto the stage. Bright lights blinded me. Heat from the spotlights made sweat gather at my temples. I felt dozens of eyes scanning me, measuring me, deciding my worth in silence. "An exotic beauty," the announcer said, his voice smooth and calculated. I wanted to disappear. Bidding began. Numbers rose. My chest tightened with every sound, until suddenly, a deep voice cut through the noise. $1 million. The room fell silent. I turned slightly and saw him sitting in the back row.
Tall, calm,
Powerful. His presence alone demanded attention. His eyes were sharp, unreadable. That was Kareem Al-Dashfayed. N01 challenges bid. Sold. The announcer said that in that moment, I realized my life had just been rewritten by a stranger. Later, in a private room, Kareem finally spoke to me directly. His voice was controlled, cold, professional. He handed me an envelope containing a contract. "Read carefully," he said. My hands shook as I read the words that would haunt me forever. He wanted an heir. I would carry his child. After the birth, I would leave. My breath caught in my throat. "I can't abandon a child," I said, my voice breaking. "You knew the terms when you entered," he replied calmly. "This is not negotiable." Tears burned my eyes, but I swallowed them back. I thought of Aman. I thought of the nights he cried from hunger. I thought of the future I could give him with that money. With a heart heavier than I ever thought possible, I signed. As the pen left the paper, I felt something inside me break. I had walked into that auction to save my son. I walked out knowing I had just sacrificed myself. The first time I stepped into Kareem's mansion, I felt like I had crossed into another world. The marble floors, towering ceilings, and endless corridors left me breathless, but not in awe. Fear, uncertainty, and the weight of my new reality pressed down on me like a physical force. I wasn't just a visitor here. I was a part of some contract, a transaction, a promise written in ink. but not in heart. Kareem didn't speak much at first. He led me silently through the rooms, his presence commanding yet distant. I noticed the way the staff moved around him, the deference in their eyes. He seemed untouchable, and yet, paradoxically, somehow burdened. I couldn't tell if it was arrogance or loneliness behind that steely gaze. Days passed. I settled into a quiet routine, morning walks in the sprawling garden, afternoons reading in the sunlit library, and nights spent staring at the stars from my balcony, wondering if Aman was safe, if he was eating well, if he even missed me. I thought about him constantly. Every laugh, every small joy, every bedtime routine I had taken for granted, I felt the ache of absence more acutely than I had ever imagined. Kareem began to show up in my routine unexpectedly. One morning, while I sipped my coffee on the terrace, he appeared, his presence startling me. "I want you to come with me today," he said casually, breaking the silence. "Where?" I asked, curiosity piqued. "One of my family's properties. A quiet place." "I think you'll like it," he replied. There was a strange softness in his voice, a faint warmth I hadn't heard before. Hesitantly, I agreed. Any escape from the mansion, even for a few hours, was welcome. The drive was quiet but not uncomfortable. For the first time, I noticed a different side to Kareem. He drove calmly, his hands steady on the wheel, his eyes scanning the road, yet somehow lost in thought. It was almost human, almost approachable. When we arrived, I saw a small house nestled among golden sand dunes. Unlike the grand, intimidating mansion, this place radiated peace. Kareem explained, "This was my mother's retreat. She used to come here when she needed clarity, away from the expectations of family and business." We stepped onto the terrace, and I felt the silence wrap around us like a comforting blanket. No chandeliers, no staff, no protocols, just the desert wind and the horizon stretching endlessly. I sank into a wooden chair, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks: ease. "It's beautiful," I said softly, gazing at the dunes. Kareem sat beside me, remaining quiet. Then he asked, almost hesitantly, "Do you miss your home?" I took a deep breath. I miss what it represented. Not just the place, but the memories, the simplicity. A life where I could be myself, not just a part of someone else's expectations. He nodded. There was understanding in his silence, a recognition that no words could fully capture. In that quiet moment, something shifted between us. A bond, fragile yet undeniable, began to form. Returning to the mansion, our interactions changed. Kareem included me in his daily life, meetings with the staff, decisions about the household, even small personal choices. I began to see the man behind the suit, the stoic businessman behind the intimidating facade. One evening, over dinner, he mentioned renovations. "I want to make the mansion feel more like a home, a place where a family could actually live." My heart tightened. It was the first hint that he might be imagining a life beyond the contract, a life that could include me. But I reminded myself, this was still temporary. I still had obligations, boundaries, fears, and Aman waiting in another city. Despite everything, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time, I felt seen, not as an object of a deal, but as a person. And though I knew the contract was still a barrier, that day in the desert had planted a tiny seed of hope. The days at the mansion were becoming bearable, even meaningful. The cold, intimidating air that had welcomed me now felt lighter, warmer. Kareem, once distant and unapproachable, had begun revealing glimpses of himself, small gestures, lingering glances, subtle smiles that spoke more than words ever could. One afternoon, as I walked through the garden, I noticed Amira, the ever-observant housekeeper, arranging flowers near the fountain. She looked radiant, and I couldn't help but comment, "You seem especially cheerful today," I said, smiling faintly. She glanced up, her eyes sparkling. "It's nice to see how things are changing around here. The mansion has never felt so full of life." I felt a blush rise to my cheeks. She didn't need to explain. I knew exactly what she meant. Things were changing, not just the mansion, but us. Kareem was changing. I was changing. And the invisible boundaries of the contract felt less rigid, almost fragile in the presence of what was quietly blooming between us. Kareem himself had started spending more time with me, not just in formal conversations about the household, but in moments where he revealed his thoughts, fears, and memories. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the garden in shades of gold, he shared something deeply personal. "I never knew how to cope with losing my mother," he confessed, his voice heavy with emotion. "She was the anchor of our family. When she was gone, everything fell apart." I felt my chest tighten. I knew that feeling all too well, the ache of loss, the loneliness that creeps in when someone essential is no longer there. I reached out, lightly touching his arm in silent understanding. He looked at me, surprised and yet grateful. That moment drew us closer, not just as acquaintances or contractual partners, but as two people who understood each other's pain. Yet, for all the connection forming between us, reality lurked in the shadows. The contract still dictated my stay. Amon was far away. My heart was growing attached, but my mind screamed caution. Nights were the hardest. Lying awake, I questioned everything. Was I letting myself hope too much? Could I trust Kareem beyond the rules, the obligations, and the family expectations that defined him? One night, he knocked on my door. His presence unsettled me in a way I couldn't define, like a storm arriving quietly but powerfully. "I know we have our limitations," he began, sitting in the chair across from my bed. "But I want you to know, I'm trying to understand what all of this means." My heart raced at the sincerity in his voice. For the first time, he admitted it, he was trying. He was willing to face the murky, uncertain emotions that had developed between us. "I'm trying too," I whispered. He nodded, relief washing over his face. The honesty in that simple exchange marked a turning point. The tension that had hovered between us for weeks began to shift into something tangible, something real. The staff noticed the changes too. Amira began treating me with more warmth, as if she already saw me as a permanent part of this household. Other staff exchanged knowing smiles whenever Kareem and I interacted. It was no longer just a business relationship. It had become a partnership in the making, a delicate dance of trust and unspoken feelings. One evening, during dinner, Kareem surprised me with an idea. "I've been thinking about renovations," he said casually, his gaze meeting mine. "I want to create spaces where a family could truly feel at home." My chest tightened again. Every word he said hinted at something beyond the contract, a future I dared not imagine, yet secretly longed for. But I reminded myself, the contract still loomed, a shadow over our developing bond. I couldn't let myself hope too much. And the following weeks, he continued to open up. He spoke of his childhood, of pressures to maintain the family legacy, and of the loneliness that had defined him for so long. I shared stories of Amon, of my struggles as a mother, and the fleeting joys that kept me going. Each conversation built a bridge over the chasm between us, connecting our hearts even as the contract threatened to pull us apart. Then came the evening that marked a subtle shift. We walked together through the moonlit gardens, the air crisp and fragrant. Kareem stopped abruptly, turning to me. "I want you to know, you've shown me there's more to life than obligations and contracts. That sometimes we need to make room for something new." I felt my heart pound. I had been falling for him, even as I fought it. And now he was admitting the same. The weight of reality remained. Aman, the contract. But in that moment, hope flickered in the quiet corners of my heart. The mansion, once cold and lifeless, had begun to feel like home. And as I returned to my room that night, I realized that the bond forming between Kareem and me was no longer a product of circumstance. It was real, fragile, but undeniably present. The days at the mansion were filled with a quiet rhythm now. Kareem and I had fallen into routines, morning coffee on the terrace, long conversations in the library, and walks in the moonlit gardens. The mansion itself felt warmer, almost alive, as though it were reflecting the subtle changes in us. But beneath the calm, the weight of reality persisted. The contract still dictated the terms of my stay. Aman was far away, and the future remained uncertain. One morning, as I arranged flowers in the garden, Kareem approached quietly, carrying a stack of documents. He had that thoughtful look he often wore when balancing responsibilities and decisions. "Lila, can we talk?" he asked softly. I nodded, following him to the terrace. The sunlight danced across the golden walls of the mansion, but even that warmth couldn't distract me from the tension in his voice. "I've been thinking about the contract and everything that's happened since you arrived," he began. "I can't ignore the feelings that have developed between us. I want us to find a way to make this work, not just because of obligations, but because we choose to be together." My heart raced. This was everything I had hoped to hear, yet my mind whispered caution. Could I trust him fully? Was it too soon to let myself hope? Before I could respond, he continued, "I want Aman to be part of our life from the beginning. If we are truly going to build something together, he needs to be here." I froze. My son, my precious Aman, in this vast mansion with Kareem? It was everything I had longed for, yet fear gripped me. What if he didn't accept Kareem? What if it disrupted the delicate balance we had created? Seeing my hesitation, Kareem reached out, taking my hand gently. "I know it's a big step," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "But I want to do this for you, for both of you. The contract doesn't have to be a barrier. We can adjust it to ensure Aman has a place here, without compromising anything." Tears threatened to spill. His willingness to adapt, to put my son at the center, was a gesture more meaningful than words could describe. I felt hope rising, fragile but persistent. Preparations began immediately. Amira, ever observant, prepared a room for Aman, decorated with familiar elements from our old home. I added touches I knew would make him feel safe: soft blankets, favorite toys, even a small painting he loved. Kareem watched quietly, occasionally asking questions, showing patience and genuine interest in ensuring Aman felt comfortable. The day of Aman's arrival was a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. The mansion doors opened, and there he was, running into my arms with laughter and joy. "Mommy," he exclaimed, hugging me tightly. Kareem approached slowly, kneeling to Aman's level.
Welcome, Aman.
"I hope you like it here," he said sincerely. Aman looked at him curiously. "Are you my mom's friend?" he asked innocently. "Yes," Kareem replied, smiling. "And I hope we can be friends too." That simple exchange eased the tension in my chest. Aman's eyes sparkled, and I realized he could sense the kindness in Kareem's presence. Over the next few days, Aman explored the mansion with wide-eyed curiosity, and Kareem answered every question with calm patience, gently forming a bond that grew stronger with each passing hour. Watching them interact, I felt a wave of gratitude and relief. For the first time, it felt like we could truly have a family, not a family defined by contracts or obligations, but one built on trust, love, and choice. Evenings were the most serene. Kareem and I would sit on the terrace, Aman asleep in his room, and speak quietly about our hopes and fears. "I want to live differently," he told me one night, his gaze soft in the moonlight. "I want to build something real, beyond obligations and expectations." I nodded, my heart full. "I want that too," I whispered. And for the first time, it felt like we were on the same path, ready to face whatever challenges awaited us together. The mansion, once cold and distant, now felt like home. Aman's laughter echoed through its halls. Kareem's warmth had softened its edges, and my heart, once cautious and guarded, was opening to a future I had barely dared to imagine. Yet, even as hope blossomed, I knew the journey was far from over. There were still fears to confront, expectations to manage, and a family history that loomed over us. But with Kareem's commitment and Aman becoming a part of our lives, it felt like the first steps toward a true beginning, a life where love, trust, and unity were more powerful than any contract. And as I gazed at the stars that night, Kareem's hand in mine, I realized something. The hardest part wasn't just navigating the rules or the past. It was learning to trust, to let go, and to believe that we could create a family that was ours alone. The days that followed Aman's arrival were filled with a rhythm that felt both comforting and surreal. The mansion, once imposing and distant, now hummed with life. Laughter echoed through the halls, small footsteps pattered alongside Kareem's measured ones, and for the first time, I felt like we were truly becoming a family. Kareem had embraced his new role with patience and care, answering Aman's endless questions, playing chess in the garden, and showing a softer, more human side that few had ever seen. Even with this newfound warmth, the weight of unresolved issues lingered. The contract, which had dictated the terms of our relationship from the beginning, still technically existed, and the future felt fragile. Kareem, however, continued to prove that he was ready to challenge tradition and expectations for the life we were building. One evening, as Aman slept peacefully, Kareem handed me an envelope with a quiet intensity in his eyes. "Lila," he began, sitting beside me on the sofa, "there's something I want you to know." My heart pounded as I looked at him. The envelope felt heavy in my hands. He continued, "This contract, it no longer holds any value." Before I could fully process his words, he tore the document into small pieces, letting them drift to the floor. Relief, disbelief, and joy surged through me. Kareem took my hands in his gaze unwavering. "Everything I've done so far has been for you and for our family. I don't want anything, not even a contract, to define our future. You've brought light into my life, Lila. You've taught me what love truly means, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you, raising our children and facing everything together." Tears streamed down my face. Words were unnecessary. The sincerity in his eyes spoke louder than anything I could say. And then, he opened a small velvet box, revealing a delicate diamond ring that caught the light like a tiny promise of forever. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice steady yet full of emotion. "Yes, Kareem," I whispered, barely able to contain my happiness. Aman, who had been peeking from the door, ran forward and hugged us both. "We're going to be a real family," he exclaimed, beaming. Kareem lifted him into his arms, and in that moment, everything felt right. The mansion, the bond we had forged, and the life that awaited us. The months leading up to the wedding were filled with joy, planning, and preparations. I wanted a ceremony that reflected my roots and the love we had nurtured, while Kareem ensured every detail honored both our traditions. The mansion transformed into a magical setting adorned with exotic flowers, delicate lights, and a harmonious blend of Arabic and Western elements. Aman was thrilled, helping with small tasks, carrying the rings proudly and running around, excited for the celebration. Finally, the day arrived. The sun bathed the garden in golden light. I walked down the aisle in a white gown with golden accents, feeling every heartbeat in sync with the moment. Kareem stood waiting, his eyes full of admiration and emotion, as if seeing me for the first time. "You look breathtaking," he whispered as I reached him. Our vows were simple yet profound, promising love, respect, and partnership. When we sealed our promises with a kiss, applause and cheers filled the air. But in that instant, it felt like the world had shrunk to just the three of us. The reception was a beautiful celebration of love and unity, where traditional Arabic music mingled with melodies from my homeland, creating a joyous, warm atmosphere. Aman ran gleefully with his new baby brother, exploring the mansion and giggling with delight. Kareem and I watched from the terrace, hands intertwined, hearts full. "This is the start of everything I've ever dreamed of," I whispered, my eyes glistening. "And it's only the beginning," Kareem replied, holding me close as we gazed at the stars. Life at the Alft mansion had transformed completely. Kareem's once rigid demeanor had softened into kindness and warmth. Aman and the baby had brought new life into the house, while our bond had grown deeper, founded not on contracts or obligations, but on trust, love, and shared dreams. We had faced the obstacles, challenged expectations, and chosen each other freely. That night, under the starry desert sky, Kareem and I danced together, surrounded by family, friends, and laughter. For the first time, I felt complete, not just as a mother or partner, but as someone who had dared to believe in love and found it in its most genuine form. Aman played nearby with his baby brother, the mansion filled with a harmony that had once felt impossible. As the music played and the stars shone above, I realized this was not the end of our journey, but the beginning of a life we would create together. A life full of hope, love, and family. Every challenge we had faced, every fear we had confronted, had led to this perfect moment, and so, under the vast desert sky, our story reached a new beginning. A family built on trust, love, and unity, ready to face the future together, no matter the challenges. The mansion no longer felt like a place of rules and obligations. It was home, filled with laughter, warmth, and the promise of countless tomorrows.